Hey there, it is Dream, and today's video is going to be about the team and the strat that I'm using for my Glossom reclears. Just like with my last guide, the Tikilen reclear farm video, I've gotten him down to a 12-turn, 5-minute kill. And again, my priority when I'm making these kinds of strats, it isn't to be the fastest that I can be, it's to be the most consistent that I can be. That being said, there is a lot more RNG in this fight than there is in Tikilen or in Varkin. His attacks have the ability to force swap characters, which if he goes before that character does, they will lose their turn. And they can also just outright murder you if they all attack the same unit, just like turn 1 of Tiki, but this kind of happens throughout the entire fight. So I've taken steps to help mitigate the chances of RNG killing me or changing my game plan more than just adding 1 extra turn. And so with that said, let's get into the composition itself. We have Teo, Viola, Odette, Tressa, Hines, Lynette, Primrose, and Wingate. 2 4-stars being brought to this as optimal slots instead of just backups. And the reason for this is that we just really don't have a lot of dark attackers yet in the game. Fior and Steed are 2 dark attackers that we do have that are notably left out of this composition due to their lack of AoE multi-hit dark moves. And so, just like my Tiki guide, you do not need any of the 5 stars in this composition awakened to make this work. Awakenings will definitely make it safer and make them stronger and make it a little bit easier on you. However, they are not required in any way. This is not the same for our 4 stars, Hines and Wingate. They need to be Awaken 1 at the bare minimum, but Awaken 3 makes this a lot safer because Hines does have a lot of chances to die throughout the fight, and having that 3k HP buffer helps a ton. Also allowing you to not have to bring HP augments onto him, being able to fill his slots with stat sticks to make him hit harder. Luckily, silver guidestones are a much more grindable resource week to week, so A3 on these units is definitely worth it and grindable for anybody. Now let's get into the replacements that you can use for this composition. I'm not going to talk about replacements for the 4 stars, Wingate and Hines, because again, they are just the optimal slots and a lot easier to get. If you don't have them awakened or leveled up yet, I recommend just working on them before going into this farm. Let's also knock out the required 5 stars while we're at it. Teo, Viola, and Primrose, basically required for this strat to work. Insane Healer, Axe Attacks, Insane Debuffer, and then of course Primrose, Insane Debuffer, and Insane Attacker in this fight. And so our first replaceable unit is Odette. She is, of course, our Queen of Light and Wind, and since our ads are weak to wind, she's going to be the best unit to do that. However, if you do not have her, Tikilen and Noelle also have a 2-hit wind AoE, just at lower potencies and with lower stats. And then we have Best Girl Tressa, who is being used for her 3-hit spear on Glossom himself, along with the damage that she can output, respectively on her own. She can be replaced pretty much 1-to-1 with Cardona, Barad, or Loomis. And even to a lesser degree Gilderoy or Steed, as they do have powerful nuking abilities, they just do not have the triple hit that the other units do. Lynette in this composition is basically replaceable with any buffer. I have her in here unoptimized. I do not make full use of her passive swapping. She does not go in and out every single turn. However, she is the best thing that I could think to put here because you still do get partial value out of her insane kit, and that's still a sizable boon to any party. And just like my last video, I did put this strat together on a spreadsheet, so I will show that on screen now. My overall game plan is very similar to how my overall game plan went for Tikilen. We're going straight for the kill on the ads, and then we are going to nuke Glossom after they are dead, adding an extra turn of damage onto Glossom that can be substituted to go onto the ads, and this damage can easily be made up during Glossom's second break when we kill him on turn 12, as I have slotted in a lot of overkill damage to help make up for the fact that my characters have awakenings and yours might not. So feel free to augment the turns with annotations next to them to fit your team's power. And with that, let's jump right into the fight. And so we come into turn 1 with Teo full maxing his regen buff for everybody in the front line, going with our Maelstrom double hit wind AoE on Odette, swapping in Lynette for her buffs, and then doing Spell Song, of course, the bread and butter of Primrose's kit. Again, the whole first half of this fight is basically just us trying to whittle down the mobs so that we can get a good break turn in, while trying our best not to die. And on this fight specifically, Glossom makes that second part really hard to do. And that's why for turn 2, we take the extra measure to put anti-attack max down on Glossom. This means that our ads are going to be a little bit tankier, but our overall fights while farming are going to be way more consistent. This turn, we are also throwing Hines back in there to do his AoE Dark move alongside Spell Song and Maelstrom. Speaking of Spell Song, using them back to back is a high SP cost, but as you can see on screen, it does start stacking up the turns that the debuff lasts, so that eventually we'll be able to give her a break and bring Wingate out without fear of losing those debuffs on the ads. And here again, just to be extra safe, we are coming in with Theo with a max regen again to apply it to the two new characters that did not get it turn 1, that being Tressa and Heinz. This whole turn is basically just setting up for the next turn. Tressa is coming in to do some damage and shield shaves onto Glossom, while Heinz and Prim are lining up both of our ads to be 1 shield each. I will say though, this is one of those turns where my A4 Adia accessory does come in. If he does use his force swap attack on turn 3, it will always target Tressa, since she priority moves out to the front and has that auto provoke on with full HP, taking away one of his chances to grief Heinz before he can attack. And then here we're going into the beginning of our first break on the ads, putting 2 BP into everyone's attack since they are still shielded from their own buffs, along with Lynette coming in to buff them for the next turn when they blow their whole load. And everyone can rest easy because everyone has Theo's regen stacked onto them, even Lynette, who was given it on turn 1. And then our nuke turn is basically going to look exactly the same, except for we're bringing Heinz back in for his AoE attack and full boosting all. And damn, you can see just how hard Prim and Odette are hitting when the mobs are broken. Wingate being not only our tap out shield shaver when Prim needs to recover SP, but also giving her maxed out dark damage during breaks when paired with her Dark Rune 2 accessory. And then of course Odette just maxing herself out with her own passive. And speaking of our boy Wingate, we're going to bring him in for a max BP AoE Dark Shield Shave, giving our Prim the chance to rest, recover SP, and be ready for the second half of the fight. And finally, we are bringing Viola back in to fully cap out to 30% the defense down that is on Glossom. We want to have it on him before we do his first break and start putting real damage into him, but I don't like putting it on super early because sometimes it'll push Dark Phase earlier than I want it to. I also turn Odette into a single target nuker onto the first ad to help make up that difference in HP that they have, since I was having problems with her being left alive to the next turn if I did not. Again, it's one of those things where you're probably going to have to augment these 2 turns depending on your team's specific power, getting both of the ads dead and getting enough Glossom damage in that you can comfortably kill him on his second break. Since my ads are dead for turn 8 consistently, I like to take this turn to rebuff with Lynette and throw some easy damage out to him on the BP holders that I have. Since for the next 3 turns after this, they're basically not going to be using any of it. But what's most important is that you're really calculating the damage on how much you can get away with without pushing him into Dark Phase too early. You'll see that for the next couple turns, I downgrade Tressa's Swift Trifold into a regular Trifold, not to change where she goes in the turn order, but simply just because it has less potency, and it helps me get away with exact turn orders for the end of the fight over and over again. Sometimes I don't even hit Glossom into his Dark Phase before I break him the second time, but on turns that I do, I have it specifically mapped out on how I'm going to break him that turn if it does happen. Also, these turns are why I call Heinz the optimal slot over units like Steed and Fior, because he has a single target 2-hit shave as well, and we are going to make use of that the whole way down to his second break. Also, last turn we snuck in a refresh on our regens on Theo before going back into the Trifold Cleaves. We've also swapped Primrose from her spell song to Dirge of Dusk, which is a 3-hit random target that also debuffs his dark defense, enabling her and Heinz to do more damage. And here we have him going to my exact plan for when he's going to pop his dark mode if he does, so we preemptively have it planned out that we are going to Viola here anyway for the double wide burst, and then finishing off his last 5 shields with Primrose's 3-hit and Heinz's double hit. Now again, if his HP is way higher for you during this part of the fight, then don't even need to switch to Viola for this. You can just keep going with that Trifold Cleave, get more damage in. If you had to use that extra turn to kill ads, this turn 12 final nuke should make up for that. I have an easy 50k damage overkill with this composition, and with that amount being about 20% of his HP, it should give you the difference that you need to guarantee it. And that's it for this video. This one was definitely one of my most requested ones, so I hope it helped you out. Good luck with your Glossom farming. I already have a guide up for my Tikilen Reclear farm strat, so if you haven't watched that, click on the video, it should be on screen now. I also have guides on the channel for how to farm the best in slot weapons and armor in this current patch, along with an EXP farm guide on how I got my characters all this high of a level. So click on my channel, check that out, subscribe if you want more videos like this. Barkin's Reclear farm guide is up next. Until then, stay safe, much love, ooh, yeah.